Hello. Uh, Meet your guide. I am Renata, a trained anthropologist, professor, a transgender, eh, and through living in a multiple cultures where transgender is at least tolerated and often accepted, and through the study of shamanism, I discovered my own transgendered nature that had been with me all the time. I just brought to the fore. Working on that, I came to the conclusion that by integrating my values to my behavior, integrating the sacred and profane, if you would, I publicly became comfortable with myself as I present. The main point for all of us to remember is that I am part of the human community, humankind. I hope that this presentation will rid us of the comfort of opinion and replace it with the discomfort of thought regarding transgender issues. Thereby, we can open up our minds and hearts to some really very vivacious and caring people. Further, I hope that this presentation will lead to a better understanding of the types of discrimination that is currently practiced against transgender people, because greater support of anti-discrimination legislation will help us all of us, to enjoy our civil rights. Okay, in part two, we're going to discuss the differences between birth sex and gender and draw a couple of conclusions. One thing I am not is some sort of four-armed, big-toe-nailed monster, as many people seem to think transgender people are. But what I am, as all of us are, is a human being. One part of being a human being, of course, is to have internal gender and external gender present in ways that are more or less aligned with this way we think, the way we present. I also have, of course, an independent birth sex, which is unimportant to me. Humans' gender is a galaxy of variation, with each of us exploring within that galaxy to specifically identify our own personal expression. My gender expression is just one of many that define me. I like to cook, I like outdoors, I like to hike, I like political activism, I like good movies, and I like to be helpful. All humans have gender, and all humans have a mix of things that make up their total personality. And we all have a birth sex. Let's take a look at them. Let's start by taking a look at a gender through the discomfort of thought. One thing that we do have to do is to transition in physical ways as well as mental ones. And there is a site which really makes it interesting to see what I'm talking about. When you start the figure by clicking on it, it'll go to the link. Make it slide. You can make it slide from male to female, female to male. Slide it slowly, and you can see how transition takes place. I can actually track as I transition. Then take on a heavy footfall to a light, another type of transition. And both of us could be relaxed or sad, but it's a different presentation. Nothing in the exercise has to do with birth sex, but only about how we perceive our gender presentation. Oh, and why don't you profile yourself while you're at it? So we might say that gender is steeped in mind and expressed socially, and that birth sex doesn't define it, nor does gender define birth sex. As we see, birth sex has a totally different set of values. There's a myth for many people, most as a matter of fact, that gender and sex are interchangeable. You can't have gender without sex, nor sex without gender. This idea is very common. But the fact of the matter is, if you say gender is to be restricted to basic biology, a binary concept still fails to capture the rich variation observed. Rather than just two distinct boxes, biological gender occurs across a continuum of possibilities. Well, do you see the problem of assessing sex based on gender? It just doesn't work. It is also impossible to go from birth sex to gender because there are multiple domains for defining gender as there are for defining birth sex, and these domains are independently characterized across a wide variety of possibilities. Gender is a person's own specific way of interacting with and presenting themselves to the world. Gender is expression, including physical, mental, spiritual, and their connective expressions. Gender is how we relate to each other and to the world. Gender expression is how we move through the world. It's expressive, rational, and integrated. We all have gender, as we've said before, but none of us should have to be forced to have a gender identity or expression that's forced on us by others. In the past, we have worked under the myth, and still do to a large extent, that gender is based and determined by birth sex. Therefore, the only way we truly know gender is to know birth sex. This is a basic groundwork that keeps a lot of transgendered people from being able to exercise civil rights and have equal non discrimination laws with the rest of the U.S. citizens in New York State. But so let's move on and see why this is myth and why it prevails.